preparing. And then we can just go back to Zoom, right? Instead of this.
I know what you want to do.
No. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, a couple of steps we have to do.
Yeah, messing with the technology here, getting live.
But anyway, welcome back to our live event. We do this every week, Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific and 3 Central.
Yeah.
4 Eastern or whatever
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
you guys are. And then we are from First Memory and Sakaso, and we do this every week, and we share every week some tools to heal, including our personal healing journey. So Alex and Desiree, just tell us what you do briefly, and then we'll jump into our topic.
So we specialize in trauma coaching, and we really bring an integrated system together that incorporates a lot of embodiment practices. One of the core ones being bodybuilding, and also shamanic techniques for processing emotion and processing trauma. Great.
And then we're from Sakaso, Paul and Satomi. We use ancient wisdom, cutting edge sciences, and then we help, not students, sorry, clients.
Students, you get mixed up with
yes.
university stuff.
Clients find their true cause of suffering and then change subconscious mind so they can heal and bring out their powerful, authentic self. So that's what we do. And then we're joining here and I'm sharing some tools. And today's topic is anxiety. This is huge topic. Like all of us here, 4 of us have experienced, and we are still learning. Like we're not perfect, and we've done. It's not like that. So we want to share our experience and what we used. That kind of thing. So
I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty perfect, but
yeah. Anyway, so who wants to start? No.
Sorry.
Desiree?
I'll start. I have I have some crazy anxiety experiences. I've had a lot of anxiety, and what I equate to my craziest experiences is that I'm not grounded enough and I haven't been confident enough in the spaces that I've been in. And some of the most horrific experience I've had were actually in corporate environments. I was in a corporate meeting one time, and the client was there and the CEO was there, everybody was there. And I literally was so nervous. I had like a mini seizure. Like, I don't remember what exactly happened. And everybody acted like nothing happened, but I blacked out for a brief second. And like, I could tell, and I could taste it smells kind of like burnt, I guess. Burnt brain cells.
oh my God.
It's almost like with high stress, we have such a physiological reaction depending on how bad the situation is. And another time I was in a Christmas party, and I was talking to a friend, I think it was a coworker's partner, and we were just having a normal discussion, but my internal landscape was just like constricting. And I was like losing access to my lungs. My lungs just like kind of stiffened up, and I couldn't even take an inhale. It was like a forced exhale. So those are some extreme examples of anxiety. Over the years, I've become much more comfortable in my body, so I don't have those bad reactions nearly as bad. But those are just some extreme examples, though, that anxiety can literally cripple you. It can take over your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty intense, Desi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to share now how you improved and got over that crazy, serious anxiety?
Well, it's not like, so there are so many different components. Obviously, nutrition was a big deal. So if you're stressed out a lot, you need like more magnesium than the average person. You need more minerals. And basically what magnesium does is it helps your body to handle the stress, to create the hormones that you need to calm down, and to do everything you need to handle that situation. So there's a nutritive component. There is a trauma healing component. With a lot of trauma, we don't really feel safe in our environment. And so like just a conversation with important people can feel like a life or death situation.
Mhm.
And so really like over time, healing and building myself up strong, building up my confidence, I think that has made a huge difference.
And did you find that out, like magnesium is good for anxiety? Did you find it out from someone, or how did you know about that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there is this health coach I followed for a long time, and we used to call him the Magnesium Man. He was like, there's like 300
Look at something.
in the body that need magnesium, and one of them is stress. But he was like, he just made magnesium really important about everything, and he was fantastic. So eventually I would take the Epsom salt baths, and I would take my magnesium supplements, and that would be something that would immediately calm me down if I was in a safe environment. So
I just wanted to interrupt a little bit. We have a question from Natalie Wilson, and she's asking, could each of you give some signs and symptoms of anxiety, and what are some of the things you suggest to alleviate anxiety? So I'll take a crack at this. So Natalie, the first thing to recognize is that anxiety, even though it can have the origin from a mental state, it's really a physiological reaction. So there are very predictable and perceptible changes that the body goes through when we're anxious. And I also want to discern what I would say are two different types of anxiety. And it's hard to say, really like the names to use exactly, but like, for instance, the things that Desiree just talked about are very strong, very strong, almost panic attacks. They can be very crippling. And that's really an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system that when it gets high enough, we can actually start to lose a lot of mental and physiological abilities. But there's also a more sustained anxiety that I think that most of us are very familiar with. I think that the average American tends to be living in a high beta brainwave state or a low level of stress day in and day out, just because of the lifestyles that we live. So there's the sustained level of this sympathetic nervous system activation, and there's also these like blasts that are specific due to certain triggers. Again, it could be the trigger could be mental, it could be a memory, it could be traumatic, it could be a phobia, or it could be an actual event that we're presented with, an accident or something that it was completely unexpected and it's out of control. But the main thing to recognize is what's happening within the body. And I think, if we have the ability, we can dive into this a little bit more, but what anxiety really is an activation of the fight or flight response. So it typically has its origins in the amygdala that activates the hypothalamus and then activates the adrenal axis. There's a dump of stress hormones, primarily norepinephrine in the brain or adrenaline in the body, along with cortisol and a number of other things that happen. So it's this chain reaction that happens in the body that really the way that I perceive it, it's reconfiguring of energy to direct energy to what's most important at that moment. And from the body's perspective, what's important at that moment is to fight off some immediate threat. So the most discernible symptom of an anxious attack really is increased heart rate. And there's an actual chart that we can look at. I have a little bit of background in the tactical fields, and we do recognize that once heart rate reaches a certain point, we start to lose certain physical abilities, like I was saying. Really, the dangerous, like true, like activation starts to happen at about 120 beats per minute, where we start to lose fine motor skills. We start to go into tunnel vision. We go into selective hearing. There might be sweating. If it starts to get a little bit higher, we might start to actually lose some mental faculties. And as it gets higher and higher, we start to lose gross motor skills. And that's why it's really important to try to stay away from that, from those really high activation stages, because that's when we go into the freeze state, right? We've all heard of the fight or flight or freeze. I think that as long as we can fight, or as long as we can run away, we're good to go. If we sink into that freeze state, that's when bad stuff happens. That's really the origins of a traumatic imprinting. So just as a quick thing, and we can dive into a little bit more, but when we're talking about, again, a physiological reaction in the body, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to try to control it with the mind. It's really going to be very difficult to control that with the mind. So we really have to use the body. We have to use physiology to alter physiology. And the best thing that we have at our disposal for that is breath. Breath is the most powerful tool that we have, really, to get in touch with the body, to be focused in the present, and to be able to control our heart rate and kind of bring this activation down more into the parasympathetic, where we're start to go into more of a relaxation stage. Could really talk about this a lot, and I want to keep it brief. But the main thing to consider, Natalie, is that working with breath in a conscious way is extremely powerful. And this is the main thing to understand. Essentially, anytime that we are inhaling, we are activating the sympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flight response. And anytime that we are exhaling, we are activating the parasympathetic, so the relaxation response. So the very active breathing is a constant switching between these two states all the time. And the reason that is because when we inhale, the diaphragm drops, and that means that there's a little bit more space in the chest cavity, which allows the heart to expand. And when that does, blood flows a little bit slower. And there's a set of neurons that send a signal to the brain that tells it that, and the brain sends a signal back that tells the heart to speed up. So it releases some chemicals to actually start to increase the heart rate, again, because there's a little bit more flow. And the opposite of that is that when we exhale, the diaphragm constricts a little bit, so that cavity is a little bit smaller. Therefore, the brain sends a signal to the brain to slow down. So the main thing to mention, and we can hopefully, if we have time, we'll go over some actual like breath work practices. I'm not breath work, but breathing patterns that we can utilize when we're in these states of activation. But the main thing to consider is that one of the most immediate signs that we are going into that stress stage is, again, rapid heartbeat, but also shallow breathing. Most people will start to take quick in-breaths, right? Or sometimes we don't breathe a lot. We don't breathe at all. We just hold our breath. And there's an energetic component to this, and we can dive into that a little bit more as well, but I'm just speaking physiology, but there's also an energetic component that's happening between the energy body and the physical body, and this modulation that happens. And so anytime that we stop breathing, the energy body becomes a little bit more untethered, and it can float outside of the body. And again, these are the first stages of trauma. So staying tethered to the body is the most important thing to do. Anyway, in breaths, and the shallow breathing or holding our breath is going to put us over the edge with the stress response. So the key is to really focus on out breaths and long exhalations. And I'll keep it short, and I'll let you guys elaborate on this a little bit. But we can share a couple of techniques. But the main thing to consider is immediately recognizing what's happening within the body, and putting all our focus on consciously controlling our breath, and especially focusing on those exhales and bringing everything down. So I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it was excellent, everything you said. The only thing that I might add is that you're speaking beautifully about the whole physiological response and what you can do about it. And I think there's a technique you're going to be sharing a little bit later in the show that will actually help people with that breath management of the situation. And I just wanted to add that there is also another side to it, where there's when you get into an anxious mindset, it's because of your perception of the world. So it's what really, when you back up just another step from what you're talking about, Alex, that's what you're saying is perfect for once you're already there and you're triggered, right? But if you back up before that, there's a perception aspect to this, that we see the world as one of two ways. Either it's a loving, caring, and supporting world, or it's a potential threat. And then our body gets into one of two states. Either we're in a growth and healing state, or we're in a protection mode, and we can only be in one of those two states. And one of the biggest difficulties we have is that although we evolved with that system, the system you described is beautifully evolved to help us respond to the environment whenever there's a threat. If you're walking to the crosswalk, and a car speeds right through the crosswalk right in front of you, you got to get out of the way, right? You're not thinking about, and it's perfect that it works that way. It keeps you alive, right? You respond quickly to the environment. You have all those physiological responses that change your whole body and its ability to respond quickly and deal with the situation effectively. But it's driving all of your energy towards that, which is survival in the moment, rather than, because when you're trying to get out of the way of that car, you're not focused on healing and growth, right? You just can't be in both of those states at once. So the problem is that we evolved to be that way when those threats were rare. You didn't get chased by, a saber-toothed tiger every single day, all day long, when we're evolving, thousands of years ago. But these days, we tend to get triggered all the time, right? And that puts us into a situation that can be very unhealthy, because if you're never in a state where you are able to relax and get into that healing and growth mode, then you don't heal, and your health suffers, right? You don't develop into more of the person you want to be. You're just surviving, right? So there's a perceptual stage that can be worked with. This is something that Satomi and I work with, and that's what helped me heal and get through my issues with anxiety, is to actually change my perception of the world so I don't see it as threatening. Whereas I grew up in a very insecure environment, And so I learned to be always on edge, ready for action. You know, what could happen, what could go wrong right now, right? So I was always in that place of being ready for action. But it was very unhealthy for me. So helping me switch, it's not easy to do because it's a subconscious thing. It's entirely subconscious. And as you said, Alex, it's a body thing, right? It's all about your body. You can't fight it with thinking about it. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be nervous in front of this crowd, right? I don't want to be nervous in this important meeting with people. It's really not very effective. That's your conscious mind trying to do all that work when really you want to work at the level of your body, which is completely connected to your subconscious and the way that you perceive the world. So you can walk into that meeting or on stage and be perfectly relaxed, right? And you don't get into that stuff at all. But if you do get there, exactly what you said, everything you said is right on target about breathing and managing it that way. So beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great additions. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And this is yet another example of why doing our trauma work and shadow work is so important too, because like you said, the triggers might be mental, that there might be just perceived threats, but not real threats. However, the physiological response is the same. It's the exact same.
Feels pretty real.
So learning how to discern that and how to modulate those triggers is super, super important.
Yeah, your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat, right? If once you've triggered it, either by an actual car almost hitting you in the crosswalk, or by, oh my God, I'm going to be in front of a lot of people speaking. What am I going to do? That's not a real threat. Those people aren't actually going to do anything to you. It's just psychology, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, or taking a test or whatever, you know, and a lot of our phobias are like that. I mean, phobias in a lot of ways are they don't make sense. You're not in any real threat, but the body doesn't know that.
Yeah, it's real to that person. It's a genuine experience for them, and it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. But there is a way to work with it. You know?
No other people understand why you are so anxious, but it's really real, right? And then lots of times there, like usually there is a reason why it's happening, like a childhood, some experience, bad experience, trauma, and sometimes it goes back to past life. You have no idea, no memory of it, but that you're nervous and your subconscious remembers it, and you are scared, and just you want to cry and go into shell kind of thing. Like it just doesn't make sense, but that's really scary, and you can't help yourself, right? Can't just get out of it, and it's very serious, and we all know how scary it is and how serious it is. Right? Just like my experience, I was pretty good. I don't know, like my kid when I was kids, early 20, 30. I was okay. I was just staying, I don't know, at least pretending I was cool, right? And calm, and I was good at it. And then like some difficulties and hardship, and I was able to deal with those things and staying calm, and I'm no panic, and I just the things happened, and I just have to deal with it, whether I like it or not, kind of thing. And I was like that, but when this empath thing hit me, that was different. It was like all of a sudden, just one day, I woke up in the morning and the world was different, and I couldn't tell what it was. I was already overwhelmed in the morning, and I had no idea, no reason to feel this way. I'm feeling, I don't know, sad or fear, I have no, it was just overwhelming, and I was crying, right? For
Oh my
for
God,
me
you're crying
to,
so much.
yeah, for me, there's no reason and why I'm crying, but I am so sad and so overwhelmed, and I couldn't tell. And so, and then later on, I figured out that's empathic. I'm receiving other people's fear and stuff. But so okay, I got it. But I didn't know how to deal with it. Like before that, I knew how to deal with my issue, right? When I worry about something like exam and interview, okay, worrying about the interview doesn't help me. So I'll just let go of the worry. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's okay. It doesn't help. So I'm just gonna do my best reducing and being nervous, and I'll do my best, do what I can do, right? So I knew what to focus, and I was able to deal with it. Now this is from other people, like I cannot go to everybody and it's okay, you don't have to worry,
Yeah.
right? It's from no idea where it's coming from, and then I couldn't stop it. It just was coming, and that was totally different level for me, and the anxiety, and it was like that. And I was talking to Paul, and he was telling me, you can do it. Yeah, but I have no idea. This is so different. I'm not used to this, and I have no idea what to do, right? And that was really, really overwhelming. And I don't know, that's, you can describe that was anxiety, right? I don't even know. It's just,
I'd say
crazy.
a definite component of what you were receiving was people's anxiety.
Yeah.
An important component of it. I'd say that when you were growing up and young, you were relatively good, from what I can gather, at dealing with anxiety. But when you were dumped on with everybody's crap, when your psychic ability just opened up, and you just got overwhelmed with receiving everybody else's stuff, and pretty much it's normal for people, society, to be to some degree anxious almost all the time, right? And that's considered normal in our society, which is, oh my God, that's so bad. And including mine, right? At that time, I had not healed from PTSD, so you were receiving my anxiety, just walking around, thinking that's normal for me. And I mean, I sucked. You were pretty good with your own stuff. I sucked dealing with my own stuff. And so you were receiving my stuff right at that point. So
yeah, so that was really,
and everybody
hard.
else.
Yeah, like I couldn't go to the store, right? Just go grocery shopping. I couldn't do it. I didn't want to see any of my friends.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave the house. It was just crazy.
I couldn't even, like, you're moving right now
yeah.
in a nice natural way, your arm. But if I was to try to hold your hand or something, you were so stiff. You were like locked up. Everything. You didn't want to move. You didn't know what to do. You couldn't.
Yeah,
get up.
Don't come toward me. Just don't. Yeah, I don't want to feel anyone. It's just, that was crazy. And yeah.
And then to get through that, you went through some specific things that you learned from Christine, your mentor.
Yeah.
Who's established. She's an amazing psychic, empath, clairvoyant, medium. She's so good. And you kind of learn from her. And there's specific things that you can do. And we know that there's people out there, many people who have, well, I think everybody has like their intuitive side.
Yeah.
And an empath is just somebody, or someone who's psychic is just been learned to work with it, learn to develop it, or it's just kind of landed on their lap, like with you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So like I've done like a breathing exercise.
Yeah.
That's one of them, and then just cleansing the energy, right?
Yeah.
Just
Smudging.
Smudging.
Grounding.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
earthing, grounding.
Yeah.
And I did just one by one, like, and I didn't feel like it was working at the beginning. And Christine was telling me, "You're gonna be better. You're gonna be better. So just keep doing it, and you know how to do it."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to do this. It's not working. I'm freaking out and crying, right?
Yeah.
"You're gonna be okay. I can see you being okay." Right? And she's psychic. Okay.
Yeah.
She says me. Okay. And then I just kept doing, like, sometimes I just go down and no, this is not working, right? But whenever I'm feeling better, maybe, and I tried a little more and do a little more, and maybe I'll do this one and do this one and just change it around because I get bored so easily. And then just kept doing whenever I feel like doing it, and then slowly, very slowly.
And
that was.
I think it's a good thing for the audience to understand is that it was like you were trapped under this big giant boulder from when you just opened up and you're overwhelmed with all that stuff that you received from other people, and you did not know how to use your muscles to get that boulder off of you.
Yeah,
And
I said that something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was all, and that's what Christine said too. It's like developing a muscle, right? So you're learning. There are muscles that we have in our bodies that we don't even think about ever developing or working with, and they're not necessarily that strong yet. But if you do isolate them and start to work with them and use patience and discipline, you can get better. And that's what happened. You're slowly able to give yourself a little breathing room underneath that rock. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, yeah, that wasn't easy, but gotten better. I'm feeling better. I'm not crying every day. Right. So yeah, whatever, this little tool and another tool, and just one by one, and keep doing it.
And if there's people in the audience watching this, there's a lot of people who are being affected by their intuition or receiving stuff. They don't know where it's coming from. They feel really bad that day. You just have an awful feeling, something like that. You can reach out to Satomi, and she can help you work with that.
Guys, we have another question from Natalie Wilson, and she's asking, so if your mind and body is constantly in an hyperarousal state, expecting attack at all times, and your perspective is that the world is going to hurt you, how do you reset your perspective to heal?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's a subconscious mind.
Yeah.
Set, right?
It is. So our approach is to get that perspective shift so that you don't receive it as a threat, and you're not geared up for a threat response all the time in the first place. And there are ways to do that. There's a lot of different ways to shift your subconscious mind. There are practices that you can do that can move it in the right direction. Even doing the box breathing as a way of responding to it, and I know you're going to show box breathing in 2 minutes, is a way of learning to be in that calm space in the first place. Right? Because your breath and your mind, it's all connected. So that's one way. That's one approach. There's a whole series of exercises that you can choose from that, with repetition, will train your subconscious mind. And you got to work with your body with this stuff. You just have to.
And we have all the videos on our channel.
Yes.
You can use those ones, and do it regularly,
Yeah.
right, and work it with your body, right? Because subconscious mind is 95% of your all activity, brain and body activity, and 5% is the conscious mind. And if you, we've been saying, if you're trying to do this and then you're telling yourself it's okay, it's not
That's not
reaching,
effective.
yeah, it's
Not
not reaching
effective.
to your subconscious, reaching to your body movement, right? So
Yeah.
like breathing work, and then you do that regularly and learn how to be relaxed, and then you are connecting to subconscious. This is okay, this is safe,
Yes.
safe place,
Yeah.
right? And do that regularly, and then you will be able to make a shift,
Yeah.
subconscious shift. Yeah, or we can do different way, quick way to just have a session and change subconscious mind. That's another way.
Yeah, there are other faster ways with our sakaso healing and transformation system that are they can take you that big step in it's just in one session, and you can get there without having to go through the training approach, the retraining yourself approach. But we also encourage a variety, and we like to have that training approach along with it, because that brings more momentum and makes it broader. It is because the session approach can be very precise and not necessarily reach as much as possible. So creating a combination is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And also the philosophy that you guys use is to, with First Memory, is to push your boundary and then relax. Right, you're always activating and then relaxing to learn. That's basically learning that, teaching your muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you explain more about that, which is a beautiful approach to doing it. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really stress inoculation practices. So as I was saying, the trick to really becoming more resilient to stress is to be able to down regulate when we are already physiologically activated. And so we use a number of practices that create an artificial state of stress. And then we train our nervous system to calm down from that state. And we do it over and over and over again. That way, over time, when you're presented with true stressful experiences, your nervous system knows what to do. Your mind knows what to do as well, because since it's already gone through all this in the past, it recognizes it. And you have that confidence and you have that muscle memory to be able to downshift and cruise through that. And there's a number. So I just want to kind of differentiate too, because I think we're talking about different things in some ways. You know, some of these techniques that we're talking about, I would consider real-time tools. So they are, tools that we can use when we're in that state of activation. Then there are training tools, like what we're talking about, the stress inoculation. You can't do this in the middle of a stressful situation. This is something you do as a daily practice, as a regular thing that you do, and that shows results over time. But the other thing that I think is also important to note is that if you are having these ongoing experiences of being triggered, it's also very important to spend some time in trying to discern what those triggers are, because we can't always just be using these tools to calm down. Yeah, but at some point we need to say, well, hold on, why am I freaking out all the time to begin with, right? And so now we start to delve into true trauma healing, because these triggers typically have their origin in the past, and typically, and this is the tricky part, are hidden from our subconscious mind. There's oftentimes,
conscious mind.
I mean, from our conscious mind, exactly. I mean, obviously, if we had a very, extreme event like a car accident or, a rape or something very extreme, more than likely we're going to remember that. But a lot of our trauma comes from developmental trauma, comes from our developmental years. And there are small things that were sustained over a long period of time. And as a way of surviving those things, oftentimes they are put out of our conscious memory. So working with a professional to really help us uncover what these triggers are, and then seeing if we can track their origin so we can bring about some healing. And I wish there was like a simple answer to that. I mean, there's a number of different techniques we can utilize, but they all involve revisiting the past and reframing that event. So it starts with identifying what the event was or what the series of events were, and then going back to the past and reframing those events from the perspective or the wisdom that we have now in the present, but bringing it towards the past and being able to reframe that to give our nervous system the signal of safety and seeing and telling ourselves in a way that our body can understand that we are safe, that we survived, and that there's no need for our nervous system to keep going into overdrive anymore. So there's a lot of different ways of doing this. I know you guys work with certain ways. We try to bring in some of the shamanic work into this type of work. And of course, modern trauma theory has a multitude of tools that we can use. But
I
you
think that,
want to demonstrate the box breathing? Or sorry, Jesse, you go first and then maybe the box breathing.
so I think that there's something really profound going on in the world right now. And I think that if anybody is still watching the news or has a news feed that is from mainstream or even alternative, I think that can start to build up on you, like whether you believe that's the ultimate reality or not, especially as soon as you wake up in the morning. You can't just like open yourself up to what other people are saying or is going on in the world. There's a very fragile first hour in the morning that you don't want to connect to media. And you also want to be very conscious of the movies and TV shows that you're watching, because a lot of those things, your brain can't tell the difference on whether those are true or false. And so over time, as I've grown older, I don't really like scary movies anymore. I don't really like movies about pandemics anymore. It's just not something that I want inside my brain. I don't want to feel afraid or any of those kind of things. So it's really important to be very careful what you let inside, and to really, like, as soon as you wake up in the morning, draw a picture in your mind of what you want your world to look like, so that you can draw in that the human connections and the peace and the prosperity, the abundance, the food, and everything that you really want to attract into your life. So just managing the information coming in is so crucial.
Yeah, and what you said about mood is very true. There's been studies done on this, and apparently the way it works is that when we're in the process, when we're in the present watching a movie, we have our conscious mind active, and it serves as a filter. So as we're taking in this sensory input, our conscious mind has the ability to discern fact from fiction. So we're aware that we're watching something fictional. We're aware that it's just a movie, and there's a sense of safety in that. However, once the sensory input gets recorded into our memory banks, we lose that distinction. So all this stuff starts to get accumulated in our memory as though we actually did experience it, did live it. And that's why oftentimes, we might have bad dreams after watching a scary movie or whatever. It's because the nervous system is actually kind of stressed out and is trying to process that emotional charge. So yeah, I think what you said is very true.
It always happened to me when I watch scary movie or like somebody killing. I always have that dream, and I'm getting chased. Right? So no more like we cannot pick a movie to watch.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to watch that. I know I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch that. Like that.
Or
It's
like
a challenge.
and like Desi mentioned the news, right? I strongly recommend not watching news. If you want to be aware of what's going on in the world, maybe just have like a news app and just scan headlines and only let yourself read something that is like actually going to affect your life. It's might be a little bit selfish, but it's important these days because there's so much that's coming at us and it feels like it's out of control. So it's important to manage that kind of input. It's also there's other dimensions to this. There's relationship dimensions, establishing healthy boundaries, understanding energy dynamics in relationships. When we grow up, and if we are on the receiving end of a lot of shit, we tend to not know that that's shit. We tend to think that that's normal and that we deserve it. And learning dynamics about how that works and how people we create relationships that are unhealthy that kind of match our old unhealthy relationships so that we can keep that dynamic going. You got to unpack that stuff and get underneath it. So there's things that if you reach out, we can point you in the direction of some good reading material, that kind of stuff, to just become more aware, because there are some really beautiful things that have already been worked through with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking it's normal. That's the tricky part, right? Because you think it's normal, right? And then checking the news, that's a tricky part, because you are scared and you want to be aware of what's going on, and then you're gonna watch more, and then you're gonna receive more stuff, and it just keep going and going. And then so if you can be aware why I want to watch this much and why I'm seeking more news. And then if you look inside, you might see the anxiety, right? And then and then you can just step back and
go in nature. Because nature is the opposite. It's like it's always calm and nice out there. Like the real reality versus the news reality. It's so weird that the whole time it's been peaceful outside in my neighborhood.
You're so right, Desi. That's exactly.
Well, not always. I mean, there was a lightning storm the other night, but
just check out anybody who's been watching a lot of news and look at how freaked out they are. If you've been watching news for a while, like watching CNN for a couple hours, you're gonna be go outside and ground and cleanse and smudge and do some exercise. You gotta get rid of that stuff.
Dream.
Yeah, and the thing to keep in mind about the media is that it's nothing new. We need to remember, at the end of the day, it's a business. And it's a business that moves a lot of money, and that money is typically moved by there's a lot of agendas moving that stuff around. But we've always known since the beginning of media that it revolves around the triggering of emotions. I have a background in advertising, and so I'm very well aware of the importance of awakening an emotion in an audience to get them to take a certain action. And so the media is that. And I mean, anybody that has lived in that world at all will tell you what really gets people to click on things is the scary stuff. For whatever reason, as humans, we tend to grab it. We're kind of morbid that way. We tend to gravitate towards the scary stuff. When we see a car accident, we always look. We want to see what the deal is. So just keep that in mind. And yes, I believe it is important to know what's happening in the world, but we need to set a limit to that and have a diet when it comes to our information as well. Be very discerning to what we expose ourselves to.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the timing here, do you want to go into the box breathing to give people a practical
Yeah.
approach to something they can do if they've been triggered?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is it's a technique called tactical breathing, or sometimes known as box breathing. And it was developed by the Navy SEALs, and it has become the standard for law enforcement, military, and emergency personnel as a way to remain engaged and in the present under highly stressful situations. So again, when we talk about the stress that we might experience, getting in front of an audience or whatever, it's kind of hard to compare to what it must feel like to have, bullets flying at you or running into the World Trade Center, right? So the technique is very easy, and it's very easy to remember, and it's very easy to do under stress, because that's the thing. And the thing to remember too is that it's a real time tool. So it's not necessarily something you're going to practice ahead of time. This is something that you can employ when you are triggered. And it's very easy. It is called box breathing because it's essentially in the shape of a box. So what you want to do is you want to take a deep breath, like not shallow up here. So our breathing apparatus really starts in the abdomen. And so there's an actual proper way to breathe. We don't really have time to go into all that right now, but essentially we want to take deep belly breaths. So, truly fill our entire chest cavity and push pull, I should say, with our abdomen to really fill with oxygen for a count of 4. So you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you hold it for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you allow that oxygen really to permeate through your body and get absorbed into your tissues. Then you exhale for a count of 4. And it helps actually if you can actually purse your lips and make a sound. It's not necessary, but a lot of folks find some benefit in actually making a sound as they exhale. So something along those lines, and you count for a count of 4. And once you've emptied your lungs, you hold again for a count of 4. So it's inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and start again. And the cool thing about this breath work is, first of all, it's super easy. And it allows you to be very physical while you perform it. So you can actually be running, you can be shooting, you can be climbing stairs, whatever, and doing this. It doesn't require any high mental faculties. You can still operate and think and plan while you keep this breathing pattern going. You mentioned driving. That's a really good one. If we're driving through kind of a sketchy situation, or there's bad weather or whatever, and you notice that your anxiety is getting the best of you, simply go into that breathing pattern. 4, 4, 4, 4, and you can keep going forever. Like this is it's a tactic that is deeply, deeply effective. It lets you hyperoxygenate the body, keep all your functions going, and it helps you to stay tethered to the moment and stay tethered to your body. Because again, when you start to fly away, that's when the bad stuff happens. So give that a try. And the cool thing is too, you can do it in social situations without anybody noticing. If you're in an encounter, with your partner or with anybody else that's really triggering you, simply just go into that, box breathing pattern. And you will notice right away. I mean, it takes just one or two cycles to really notice your heart rate dropping, and everything start to stabilize. So yeah, it's one of the most powerful tools we can use. Again, as a real-time tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was really I guess being tossed around by anxiety and panic attacks and things like that, I learned 4-7-8 breathing, which has crossover. It's not exactly the same, I know, but it's a rhythmic breathing that slows it down and brings you into that calmer state. And oh my God, those techniques are so effective. And I know the box breathing does exactly the same thing. Very, very powerful.
And
The 4-7-8 breathing has its power in the fact that the exhalation is longer than the inhalation.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, I mean, those are just like reference points so we can remember it, right? You don't actually have to hold it exactly for 4 or exhale for 7. I'm sorry, exhale for 8, whatever. It doesn't have to be exact. My point being is that long exhalations become very difficult when you're being very physical. So if you're running, you're really going to struggle having
it, but because sometimes I like to go for super long runs and I'm not in shape for them all the time, but so I push myself, and then I have been like having a physiological stress response on a run, and I will do the 4-7-8, and it's kind of hard. You're like pushing out, but it does calm you down, and then I'm just jogging, and I feel better. At least I'm not as anxious. So
now that you mentioned running, a good technique that we can utilize to maximize that the uptake of oxygen is physiological size.
Yeah.
So on the in-breath, breathing twice. So
Yeah.
and then take a little bit more of air in there, and that forces all the little sacs in our lungs to uptake more air, and then try to go into that longer exhalation.
We actually do this naturally in our sleep.
This is true.
Huh. Interesting.
Ever just they were watching people sleep and they're like, wow, they just calmed down a lot right then.
Interesting. So like they're all wired up with the EEG and stuff like that, and they monitor them. Like, that's interesting.
Probably what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Yeah, something else to mention is that an increased heart rate or a stress activation due to exercise is going to be very different than stress activation due to actually being in a life or death situation. So trying to maintain these breathing patterns become harder and harder when we are in a real life or death situation. The tactical breathing, I think you will find, is very easy. It's just natural, and it brings your attention to that. It kind of harnesses your mind to stay present. Even just the act of being conscious of the way you're breathing is enough to keep you tethered in the moment and in the body. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Go ahead on.
So you want to wrap up, or I think we covered some good, really great stuff. Thank you for demonstrating that box breathing.
Yeah, and thank you, Natalie, for your questions. That was great questions. And anybody who's watching and during the live, you have questions, we'll try to cover all the questions and answer all the questions. So don't hesitate to ask and leave some comments. And if you missed the live, you can still leave comments and questions, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible in our comments thread, right? Or you can reach out to us. Alex and Desiree is from FirstMemory.one, O-N-E. Did I spell it right?
Yeah.
FirstMemory.one, or we're from sakaso.ca, and then you guys can contact us, either of us, and we are we are having a combined healing program too, but they have First Memory and what we have, and then combined. And
yeah, those our two approaches are different, but they're so complementary. They come together, and that's why we're doing this integrated program, right? That with us on the subconscious mind reprogramming approach, and you guys with all the techniques you use to work with your body, to work with your breath, to work with sleep and your meditation. There's so much that's brought together with our two different approaches that, oh my God, it's gonna. I'm so excited about this program because I know it's gonna have tremendous results for people when you bring the two together. Because I know your program is incredibly effective. I know ours is effective, and that's gonna be
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if
essentially,
people are having trouble, yeah.
we just launched a self-regulation program through FirstMemory.one, and what we consider it radical self-regulation. So basically, if you're stressed, how to down-regulate. If you are depressed, how to become more joyful. Basically up or down regulate depending on what you're facing. And we use the body and the mind. And what's amazing about Sakaso is that they are sort of like cheating. They help you get to find out what your block is, and they help you reprogram that so that when you activate your life through our program, you have less blocks in the way. So it's really, really cool. So yeah, reach out to either one of us and answer your question, or even comment on the video.
Yeah, and so you can start healing and transform your life. Us, we are still trying to transform to be better, but we'll see where.
Always
Yeah.
have that drive.
See where it goes. Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good.
Can't.